Welcome to Honest Car Reviews. My name is Eric and this is the Nissan Ariya, the first all-electric Nissan. A mid-size SUV that is competing against the Volkswagen ID.4, Hyundai Ioniq 5, Kia EV6, Tesla Model Y and many more. Which means that Nissan needs to bring their absolute A-game to be able to be a valid alternative or an interesting alternative in terms of price, performance, all of that. Quickly I'll talk about the specs, because base price 53,000 euros. That's for the lower size battery. This is the bigger size battery, which comes at 87 kWh, and that brings up the price to 58,000 euros. But the thing with Nissan, with this car, is that you don't have to spec it out that much. You spec out the 87 kWh battery and you get the car. You don't have to spec out the 360-degree camera. That comes as standard, so it's a very, very well spec'd car. Range, they claim, is over 500 kilometers. Horsepower is just above 200. Torque 360 Newton meters, and this is also the front wheel drive car. There is the four-wheel drive option as well, but this car doesn't have it. And for these types of weather, I can straight away say that you want the four-wheel drive system, because the torque does come into play in this type of weather, especially for an electric car. But the charging speeds 130 kilowatt. Compared to the Mustang Mach-E, 150 kilowatt. Same with the ID.4, the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and the Kia EV6 is over 200 kilowatt. What is up with the slow charging speeds? Check out the interior. We'll start with the boot space. Interesting feature that when you get close to the car, it is basically activated. You can see the light. You can now open the car up. And here is another problem. Not the biggest boot space. 466 liters. And compared to the Skoda Enyaq, which has 585, or the Volkswagen ID.4, which is at about 550, this is much smaller basically. One good feature is that wheel arches doesn't protrude that much into the luggage space. There's a flat entrance and there is some storage underneath. Let's check out the rear seating space. The bench is quite low down, so my knees are quite high up. A lot of knee space, quite a bad amount of foot space actually. Quite surprised about that. Even though I do fit with my head, there is just a few centimeters before I hit the roof, and especially towards the side there's also just a few centimeters. Quite surprising, especially since the lack of boot space compared to the competition. But it is airy. You have this panoramic sunroof. I do like they have two tones, so the roof is white beige and lower down it's dark. A lot of plastic, but they don't feel too cheap. All the buttons and so on feel very nice. The closing sound of the door feels solid, well engineered. You have lightning port and USB-C port, heated seats in the rear, simple but effective air vents, and a flat bottom here. But one other major problem in the rear seat, not major, but if there are three large people that want to sit in the rear, well, the person in the middle needs to be quite short, because if you are me, you won't be able to sit in the middle comfortably. You can hear the GoPro hitting the roof, and so is my head. I can't sit straight in the middle seat here. right. Wow, I think Nissan has really nailed the design and the functionality of most of the interior. Not that many buttons, but if I start the car up, the car comes up to temperature very quickly. Glad for that. In terms of the controls, Nissan has just nailed it. Super easy to use. The right side is for the cruise control. To use the active cruise control, press this button and then set the speed and you're done. For the right part is for increasing and lowering the volume, for changing the middle of the gauge cluster. There is a fair amount of customization for the digital gauge cluster. You can see that I changed from regular here to map to, I mean, you have changed view to this classic gauge layout, to a more modern, different look. First time that I got into the car, I was a bit surprised about the infotainment system, because some of the control for the air condition is controlled through here, but if you want to have heated steering wheel or heated seats, you have to go through here. And the design here doesn't look that good. I mean, yeah, it shows what you need, but doesn't look that good. In terms of the speed, yeah, it's quite responsive, but everything is there, everything works, and that's the most important thing. One interesting thing about the Ariya is there's a lot of nice touches, and that is the control for the armrest here, that you can go both backwards and forward. And also there's a button here to open up a little storage bin. Super nice feature to just have. Alright then, driving the Nissan Ariya, and it is as close to an electric car as you'd expect. Quiet because of the electric engines. Hardly any wind noise, which I'm grateful for. The different driving modes: Sport, Standard and Eco. Standard is the driving mode that the car starts in. And Sport is of course a more reactive. Throttle pedal doesn't really change anything else, but it is in Eco where things really happens. Really interesting driving mode. So I go into the left lane here. When I release the throttle, there's no engine braking. And when you drive downhill and release the throttle, the car will accelerate. You can see now that I have 50% charge, I'm 184 kilometers. Fully charged 100% is 525 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken, just over 500 kilometers. And this would equate to 364 kilometers when it would be fully charged. Right now it's of okay quality, but as soon as the sun is starting to go down or the lighting conditions aren't optimal, the quality is just pretty bad. And the way that I placed it, it gets dirty from rain and snow quite quickly. Trying to find a good seating position is pretty difficult in this car, and for me, my knees are always really close to the center console, or here at least, so my knees are almost always touching it, which I guess when you crash is not a good thing. If you find yourself in a situation where it would be slippery or you need to control this car, I think it would be very controllable and easy to read. And there is some power, yep. And you do have the same power output in the smaller battery as well. When you go up to speed, and I mean up to speed, the suspension is very impressive. Very eager front. Initial turning is really good, and the bite changes the direction nicely as well. Yeah. Very well calibrated chassis, very well calibrated suspension as well. Traction control, really good. aggressive, cuts power, but it still keeps the speed, so it doesn't cut the power and you feel like, oh, everything is dying. Let's see if I can use this button now. Yeah, warning, system faults, see the user handbook. Maybe the steering is heavier or softer. It's really difficult to read, but it doesn't tell me what it does. Just warning, system fault. It's a fantastic car. Well built, looks cool, nice interior design. It doesn't have the best boot space, it doesn't have the best rear seating space, it doesn't have the best range, it doesn't have the best charging speeds, it doesn't have the lowest price. Maybe it has a really good solid combination of them all, but I think it's just too little too late, especially since the Ariya was pretty late to production compared to the ID4, which has, especially in Sweden, solidified itself as one of the big hitters in the mid-size SUV segment. And that's the same with the Tesla Model Y and the Hyundai Ioniq 5. And I think that might be my final conclusion for the Nissan Ariya. Too little, too late, even though it is a very solid car.